All right, hello and welcome everyone to Weekend Rental episode 45. We are your gaming and geek culture podcast, come out on a bi-weekly basis. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, hey, even YouTube, and as always, all things Weekend Rental at weekendpodcast.com. Nailed it. My name is Ryan. As always, I'm joined by Andy.
Hey.
And Nate.
What's going on, guys?
So we have an exciting buy, rent, burn this time out for the almighty green screened Game Boy. So if you're not familiar with our opening segment here, buy, rent, burn, what we do is we all pick a game for a given system. Obviously the Game Boy this time around. We play those games individually, and then at the end of it, we'll decide which of the three games we would personally buy, rent, or burn. This episode's a little bit interesting because we've all picked games that I can describe perfectly by referencing two other games. So Andy's pick is Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise, which is Mario Brothers Arcade meets Bomberman. Nate's pick is Quarth, which is Tetris meets Space Invaders. That was Nate's description. And my pick is Motocross Maniacs, which is Excite Bike meets Trials. What do you think? Those are pretty spot on, right?
That's very accurate.
Pretty good.
These are like weird, quirky games that combine elements from other games. But what we usually do is we'll go back through and discuss each one of these individually. I'll read a description on these so you get a little bit better understanding of the game. So back to Andy's game, Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise. This has a long description for this game, but we'll go through. And my mind usually goes in the gutters. This might be hard for me to get through again, but I'm going to read it. Maybe it's just me. I don't think so.
We'll support you. We'll support you.
So the description on this one. In this high-skill action-adventure game, Mr. Chin is in hot pursuit of his favorite treat. He has come all the way from China to eat as many luscious gourmet peaches as he can before anyone else discovers how to eat this unique treat. As Mr. Chin, you must pursue the mysterious momos and zap them into peaches with your demo beam. So hurry up, run, zap, jump, and eat as many peaches as you can before they make dinner out of you.
Well, the way you say peaches does not help the cause, but anyways.
It was almost like a Nick Cage impression there with his peaches.
Peaches.
I could eat a peach.
And now that I know they're peaches, I just look back at those sprites after you zap them. They do kind of look like walking vaginas. Or were they peaches? I don't know.
Yeah. That is kind of true.
That character model of Mr. Chin creeps me out so much more now.
Yeah, I don't think they could lay this type of theme on a game in 2019. Call it Mr. Chin and have that kind of character and say, he's coming over here. But yeah, it's a fun game. It's like you said, it is the original Mario Brothers, and you have like 3 different platforms that you go up and down, just like Mario Brothers. There's enemies that go, a warp pipe. There's enemies that go up and down those. You get underneath them. You can't really attack them from underneath. The attack mechanic is laying 2 trip mines, I guess I would call them. I don't know. They have to be on the same level, and you want to get them in between them to set them off, and then that's what turns them into peaches, apparently. And then you go eat those tasty peaches.
I love your hesitation in that. Go eat those tasty peaches.
Yeah, it's a really weird design choice. It took me a while to figure out the beam bomb mechanic thing. But I think it's a visually overall pretty attractive game. It's just kind of within the first few levels, it gets very repetitive. But I like what it had to offer. It's almost more like a puzzle game than an actual true platformer.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of quirky. It's definitely its own thing, even though it's borrowing heavily from 2 other things. I've never played a game quite like that. I did like the cute little cutscenes in between, like the bonus levels, and all of that had a lot of personality for an early Game Boy game. I just didn't find myself particularly having a lot of fun with the gameplay. I just kind of found it more tedious.
Yeah, most of the gameplay is like setting up these characters to try these little monsters or whatever they were to get in between where you set these things, and they like that's the whole game. So getting that to work is kind of frustrating sometimes, especially when there's a few little sections that you can drop under and they don't.
Yeah.
So it changes the mobility. It kind of changes the rules on how each character walks around on these platforms. But it took me a while to figure out that if you actually hit the blocks and break the blocks, that's when they start falling down to the next level.
Yep.
Yeah, this is definitely a highly racist game nowadays. I really enjoyed it. Something that I found kind of interesting is so Mr. Chin, the guy that is laying down these bombs to create these monsters into peaches, isn't he the same guy from the NES game Thunder and Lightning, or Lightning and Thunder? The guy that's running down below? They almost look identical. And so I was wondering if there was any correlation to that, which I didn't really dive into it at all, but he just looked very familiar. And I just got that game at our Game Exchange, and so that it was fresh in my mind. But it is definitely Mario Brothers. I found it very enjoyable trying to set up what I wanted to accomplish. So I'd lay down one of those mines and then try to work everything down and try to get them all at one hit.
Right.
And so that was kind of fun. It's kind of a risk reward type game, but I found it very enjoyable.
I wish Mr. Chin's sprite was a little bit smaller. I think that's my only real complaint, is that it's so, and like his hitbox is huge.
Yes.
So it's so easy to accidentally get yourself killed, especially with the overly slippery controls, which is kind of like an arcadey feel, especially it's almost like they lifted that right from Mario Brothers.
The momentum too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that sprite is really big, where you just barely jump and you're hitting the bricks right above you. So you had to just be really careful on how you're maneuvering. Because I found myself kind of panicking in moments and jumping and just breaking bricks, and then they're falling down on me every time. But small complaint.
Yeah. Well, and then that's kind of compounded by the fact that your bomb thing or whatever is almost the same surface space as the bottom of Mr. Chin. So it's like you really have to leave yourself enough room to set that up. But I mean, again, that goes into your strategy, like you were talking about, Nate, and planning it out, looking for those windows. Yeah. It just could have been a little tighter.
Yep. Yeah. Looks like there was a Mr. Chin for the MSX. The original. So they're
nice.
Did you find any correlation with him in Thunder and Lightning?
Not that, no. I don't see
it. Okay, play Thunder and Lightning, and you might be like, okay, well, how did Mr. Chin get into this game? So you'll have to take a look. It's very interesting.
It is. They are both Romstar games, so I bet that's the case.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into our second pick here. This is Nate's pick, Quarth. I don't think I'm going to read this whole description because it's just massive, but the description is: warning, Quarth is the blockbuster puzzle challenge guaranteed to knock your socks and your block off at the maddening, mind-numbing pace. With a mortifying rain of bionic block patterns descending upon you, you race back and forth in your powerful blockbuster ship, obliterating the blocks before they blow you to kingdom come.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening in this game. So this is exactly what Ryan said. This is a Tetris meets Space Invaders game. So it is very puzzly like Tetris, except for those blocks are coming down, kind of scrolling down from the top. And then you are this machine down below that is shooting blocks, filling, I guess, the gaps in the blocks that are coming down. And then as you fill in the gap, then they blow up, and that's how you get your points. It's really enjoyable game. I found myself playing it forever. I think it's just one of those repetitive games, and as the game speeds up, it gets a little crazier, just like Tetris. As you progress through the different levels and you get certain points and whatever else, then it starts speeding up and leveling up. And yeah, it was definitely something unique, kind of unique for the Game Boy. But it just reminded me like how many puzzle games there were on the Game Boy. It seems like for the beginning life cycle of that handheld was just puzzle games. So
yeah, I will say the maddening pace that they talk about is a little exaggerated. I mean, it definitely speeds up, like you were saying, but it so gradually increases. And I think more of the challenge and the pace comes from you trying to set up larger combos. Because if you just play the game at its minimum, where essentially you're, like you said, you're just completing these shapes to either make a square or a rectangle and then it dissolves. But if you just do the bare minimum to make that happen, you won't get as many points, and it's pretty easy to clear the board and keep ahead. But it's when you start taking the risks and adding on, an additional 5 rows to a block to get the big combo that it gets a little crazy.
And that's where it kind of reminded me of like kicks, making rectangles.
Yeah. Sure.
Kind of, playing that risk reward, trying to get the bigger thing. And I had a lot of fun with it though.
But yeah, it's kind of a hidden gem. I guess I'd heard the name, but I didn't really know what this was about.
Yeah, I don't think it's terribly expensive. Maybe around that $10 mark or somewhere around that. I've never heard of it, but it was just kind of one of those titles that stuck out at me when we're kind of going through lists. And I'm glad I played it. Like, if I ever got into handhelds, which I don't, but if I did, that would definitely be one that I'd want to just play.
I couldn't quite get the rules down on like what made a bigger rectangle. Sometimes it would work, and then the next time, like part of it wouldn't go, and it would still be there, and that's what screwed me over every single time because I was trying to make something huge, and then only half of it would disappear, and then you're stuck.
So as far as I can tell, you can only build off of a single piece, and you can't combine multiple pieces into one. They won't dissolve in that way.
Oh, I did that though. I made it happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like if you can get one piece to like you all the way around another piece.
Oh,
and then you fill it and then fill in the middle. It does the whole thing.
Nice.
And like 50% of the time, if it's like 2 pieces on the side, it would work, and then the other 50%, it would leave like half of it there. So I don't know what the rule was.
I think the worst ones are those straight rectangle pieces, where it's just like I'm just building one more layer on top of it. Like, how dumb is this?
Yeah, I found myself like as the game was speeding up, and you're looking at where you're shooting, like if it's on the left of the screen, like the things on the right were the longer ones, and I found myself not seeing it and then just, like running over as fast as I can and then over adding like a block. So instead of making it a nice even square, then I add one, then I got to add one all the way down. I was like, no. I'm trying to like count. So that part, as it sped up, was pretty exciting and made it pretty fun.
Yeah. I'd say the only thing it's really missing here and that all good puzzle games should have is just a rockin' soundtrack.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That would have made a big difference. But I really enjoyed it. It's a weird little puzzler.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about our last game. That is going to be my pick, Motocross Maniacs. So description on this one. This is pure insanity, and to take the checkered flag, you'll need sheer intensity to throttle past hundreds of obstacles, including the head-spinning loop and skywriting ramp. You'll also need precision skills to refuel with nitro turbo boosts that'll power you to victory. There's some more about how many tracks and stuff are in here, but that's the basic description.
Slash Excite Bike.
Yeah, so basically this is a 2D Excite Bike. Well, Excite Bike was 2D, but it had like a pseudo 3D effect to it, where this is just straight 2D. It's a Game Boy game, so it's one bike on the screen. You can do mirror races against the computer, And it's the exact same principles as Excite Bike. It seems deceptively simple, but it's all about using your angle and your pitch to come off of jumps. And this game is punishing in your ability to pull those and execute those moves off perfectly, because the joy you get out of the first level and those squeals of wee on the loop-de-loop are just crushed when reality strikes in level 2, and it is on. It does not give you any room to miss a boost, miss a critical jump, and your game can quickly be over. I will say the developers obviously understood this difficulty, and there is no restart sort of. You don't lose progress with this game, because all 8 tracks, there's 8 tracks and then 3 difficulty levels. All 8 tracks when you start the game are available. You just select which one you want to take on. So if you lose, yes, it's frustrating, but you can get right back in. Smart design. What do you guys think?
I liked it. It reminded me, there was this game on a mobile game, like a mobile phone game, where you're like this stick figure on a bike, and you are like working the angle with like the D-pad in a way when you're going over jumps, and so that you're not flipping forward or backwards. And it just kind of reminded me of that, and I liked it. It was tough to know when you're supposed to boost, when you're not, and it was frustrating. The first, like you said, first level, I was like, oh yeah, this is good. I feel pretty good about this. And then also the second level, I was like, what just happened? Why are they doing this to me? And I liked it. I liked that it was similar to Excite Bike, but it took some different things where you do have that loop to loop. You know, it almost comes across like Excite Bike being this scrolling scene at you, and so yeah, this just had something a little bit different. It was fun. I liked it. Frustrating game though.
I don't think there was like a heat management system, right? Like in
no,
which is
Thank
a huge
God.
upgrade. Yes, that is
high pitched noise.
I love that you can just go in this game, and then once you start building those nitros up, it's like it fills the meter, but it still keeps track of how many you actually get.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's not one of those things where, oh, you filled your meter, now you can't collect them anymore. No, it just keeps going, and you can just stockpile like a ton of them and just go and go and go. And yeah, like you said, the first level is just fun. You're just going all over loops and everything, and then every one after that, it's like, well, that looks fun up there. I wish I could have made it up there.
Yeah.
I can't even get up there. Yeah,
I'll just hang on this puddle down here, guys. This is cool. Yeah, it's astonishing how quickly the difficulty ramps up. Even like level 2 is a reality check, but then level 3 is, if I missed this one piece,
yeah,
I should just restart because it's over. I'm not making it.
Yeah, that was the frustrating part. You want to do all those loop-to-loops and all the cool things, and you're stuck down on below, and you're like,
yeah,
how did I get down here? This isn't good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. It's kind of funny how close to Trials it made me feel. I don't know if you've played the Trials games at all, Nate, on newer consoles, but just those games are, if you're going to throw a controller through your screen, that's the game to do it. And I feel like if I was a kid and I had this on my Game Boy, like my Game Boy would have just been shattered into a million pieces, but in an enjoyable sort of way.
But you would like pick it back up and do it all over again.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
This one's kind of worse because you can't just restart from the last checkpoint like in Trials. You have to
let the clock run out. Yeah, it's true. It's even more punishing.
Yep.
All right, so now we've gotten through all the games. Let's go back and give our verdicts. Andy, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, this one was actually kind of tough to suss out because I enjoyed all 3 of them, just to some extent. There's some parts that fall short, but I had the most fun with Quarth, I think, just because it was an addicting puzzle game that had enough twist above what Tetris gives me to make it a lot more fun. Trying to get those combos were pretty tough, and I kind of like that. Like as the stuff starts getting faster and going, that you're trying to, doing a risk reward situation on that. But yeah, Quarth is a good game, definitely. My rent is going to be Motocross Maniacs. It's pretty impressive what they did for that type of game. I'm not a huge fan of Excite Bike, and I like this one a lot more. And I think it's because I don't know. There's a lot less to handle. I think in this game you can just go, and all you have to worry about is the angle, for the most part, speed and angle, I guess.
It's important in a lot of things in life.
Yes.
I would agree, though. I like that more than Excite Bike.
Yep.
Like Excite Bike's fun, but this seemed for a Game Boy game definitely had a lot more.
Yep.
I think.
Sounds like sacrilege to me, but
no,
I know
they are both really good in different ways.
I'd rather be rewarded with nailing something to be able to go through a loop than just changing tracks on Excite Bike to avoid a puddle, for the most part. And my burn is going to be Mr. Chin. I had fun playing it, but there was just a lot of frustration in trying to get everything set up. It was like trying to take care of like 10 different babies at the same time, it felt like. Just corralling them all in the same spot, and it was just kind of a nightmare. But I think if you got good at it, it'd be a lot more fun.
Yeah. Nate, how about you?
Yeah, this was very difficult. All three games were really fun. And almost all puzzlers in a way.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yep. I mean, Motocross was a little bit different, but you still had to really kind of map how you were going to do things. So I think for a buy, rent, burn, these all kind of line up really well. And the games, there's nothing that's like a clear, crappy game. So I think I'm going to buy Quarth. I really like that style of game. I like the twist on Tetris a little bit, and like Andy said, building those combos and risk reward and all of that stuff. So that's definitely going to be my buy. Rent is going to be Motocross Maniacs. I think that's a game that I could rage very quickly, and I did rage, especially after the first level. But it's one that I would keep on playing. And then, obviously, the burn is going to be Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise. And it's not a bad game. When you put it up against those two, I think somebody's got to burn. So that's the one I picked.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I'm with you guys in that I thought all of these games, like across the board, this might be one of the most even-keeled Byron Burns we've ever done, and I really thought our answers were going to be wildly different. But I mean, I'm going the same route you guys are. Quarth was awesome. I think I texted Nate like 9:00 last night after I got done playing it for an hour. I was like, Quarth is my jam. And, I mean, I usually like set myself a time limit with these for the sake of getting stuff ready for Byron Burn. And this one, I just didn't realize how long I played Quarth, and it's awesome. Super simple, super addictive, and fun. I'm going to rent, obviously, Motocross Maniacs again for the same reasons you guys said. Had I known about this game as a kid, I think this probably would have been one of my favorite Game Boy games. It wasn't on my radar. I was a huge fan of Excite Bike. This felt like a really cool, amped up mobile version of that. It would have been nice to have it. It was a great game. For what it was. It's simple, challenging, and easy to pick up and play. And then I'm going to burn Mr. Chin, obviously, like you guys did. There's nothing inherently wrong with the game. It just doesn't stand out as much as the other two. Plus, it set Chinese and U.S. relations back at least 10 years. So, in the modern age, it just doesn't. You can't quite get away with that.
Nope.
That description. Oof. This. Keep in mind that description was pre-Presidency of the United States of America and Millions of Peaches. But post that, this is a little tough read on this game.
Yeah.
So unanimous verdicts. I like it.
It's a rare moment. I think we just need to take it in for a second,
especially when on one that isn't that clear.
Yeah,
like you said. Yeah,
I really thought it would be all over the place.
I agree. I thought everybody was going to pick their own game, basically.
I was going to rent Mr. Chin, and then you guys started making like all these arguments for why Motocross Maniacs was so much better, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm wrong here.
You flip flopper.
Yeah, it's the problem with being last. You get influenced all the way along. I don't have my own thoughts. That's the sad truth.
You should. Is that on a t-shirt? I don't have my own thoughts.
It's gonna be.
Nice.
Another Byron Bird in the books.
Ultra's Motocross Maniacs for Nintendo's Game Boy. With head-spinning loops and nitro turbo boosts, it's about to get you in its clutches.
All right, so moving on from Byron Byrne, let's get into the middle of the podcast here. This one, we're going to talk about something kind of exciting. I don't know about you fellas. I'm still very overtired from the weekend we just had. We came off of kind of a little event that the three of us worked on, something we've discussed. The opportunity arose to kind of jump on it and see what would happen, and that was the Fargo Game Exchange, which the three of us put on last Sunday at the Ramada in town here in Fargo. And it went better than I could have anticipated.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I'm still kind of recovering, even though I feel like I didn't do as much, but we had a couple of late nights putting everything together, taking everything down, and yeah, it was amazing, the turnout. It's one of those moments where you're like, okay, what gauges a success? Is it going to be 50 people? And, whatever it is. And it exceeded my expectations by far. There was a ton of people that came through and a ton of vendors and some really good stuff and good prices. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was exciting to see like how many people are in it, in this hobby in our area. A lot of people that I've never seen before. And you could tell a lot of them were kind of casually getting into it as well. I mean, I sold a lot of consoles, which are obviously people
that was impressive,
just getting into it.
Like the amount of consoles you had.
Well, you had so much stuff on your table, and then about that like 1 o'clock mark, I look over, I'm like, holy crap, there's just huge holes in your table space from how much stuff you had moved.
Yeah. Yeah, I could have went down to like half a table at the end there. But yeah, it was definitely a success.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those ideas that it's kind of difficult to make yourself try, because there's a lot of what ifs, right? Like, well, one, can we get people to come set up tables? Can we get vendors? Can we get people interested? And luckily we've got a lot of connections in the community and in the area. And we set up our room. I mean, I'm not, we should set the scale. I mean, we weren't looking at filling a massive convention hall. We had planned to have 20 tables set up for vendors and then a few additional ones for anyone who would walk in and set up games. And it just so happened that before we even opened, every table was used and full of games. People showed up. So then the nerves kick in. It's like, well, we invited all these vendors. What if we have them here? Some of them drove from a couple hours away. What if nobody comes and nobody buys anything? So then the next fear is, gosh, I hope we don't piss off these vendors, because it'd be great if we could. And some of them are our friends, so we can get them to come back and do it next year. And then the people started coming, and they did not stop coming. And I think by halfway through the day, people were saying, "Oh, this is great! I just can't believe how much stuff is selling." And those conversations were very positive for something that is basically an experiment the first year out of the gate. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think I think it did cater to just a little bit of everybody. So it was the casual gamer. It was someone looking to get into some of the stuff that maybe they grew up as a kid. I had a couple of NES consoles. Those went to guys that didn't have really NES games, and they bought NES games at the exchange. So for them I would just want to relive my childhood. I thought that was really cool. And then, yeah, Andy, like you selling a whole bunch of consoles for, probably a lot of casual gamers. And it was just a cool event for families to come together. And like our kids were all playing the consoles that we set up, and they were going crazy. That occupied them for a long time. So it was definitely family friendly. Yeah, I was just so pleased with how it went.
Yeah, and the coloring contest was a huge hit. Our daughters were kind of helping get kids into that. I will say we gave away 2 gift cards for that. And it just so happened that what we instructed our children to tell the people was, well, right, on the back of the sheet, because we hung these all up, our daughters picked the winners. Write down your name and your parents' phone number. We'll contact them if you won. And I don't know if you guys saw, but when I sent those text messages out, in both cases, it was families with 2 children who had both entered.
Oh,
and I didn't specify in those texts who had won. So there's always like one like kind of defeated sibling. So I'll have to tighten that up for next year. But, the kids that did win, the smile on their face, I mean, it was really cool. And it kept our kids occupied. And I had that giant bowl of, I think it was 60 packs of Pokemon gummy snacks for kids to eat. There was literally none in there by about 2:00 that afternoon. So
there's a good chance my son ate about 48 of them.
Yes. Mine
He was just hanging, just underneath the table was just piles of wrappers. So, these kids are just like coloring and like, I gotta have some more fruit snacks.
At some point, my son thought it was a 1-to-1 where you had to color something to get a fruit snack. So he was just whipping out the crappiest looking pictures.
Done.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
One swipe.
I loved the variety of like all the vendors. So there really was something for everybody. There was NES, there's PlayStation, 64 stuff. There was even, I picked up a TurboGrafx game. There was Sega Master Systems, but then there was toys, there was memorabilia, there were, I had Zelda books on my table. And so there was just a wide variety, and people were buying everything. It wasn't just everybody's going after one thing. So that was pretty interesting. And Ryan, you had a whole bunch of like geek culture stuff at your table.
Yeah,
that was impressive.
I kind of felt like I had the opportunity to pick a bunch of it up because our area Target was basically rearranging, so they liquidated all that stuff. And it kind of felt like I could get some of that stuff and get some more of the casual market in. And that stuff sold really well for me. And granted, I think the big thing here is none of us were overpricing anything. It was stuff we wanted to move. It was under what you would pay retail. And for the most part, I think everybody adhered to that. And yeah, like you said, just there was a variety of stuff, and there was stuff for systems that you don't normally see in our area. CJ, our buddy from Replay Games, he had a bunch of import stuff. He had a Neo Geo CD game there. I mean, all of that stuff, even if not all of it sells, it's amazing to see on a table. And yeah, the collectibles, the TMNT figures, and you got the Wizard Gamers over there, Danton, with his like wizardly hacked, PlayStation 2, and his buddy's got the modded or repaired Game Gear. It was a good mix of stuff, and it made me feel happy, I guess, that we brought vendors in, not a ton of vendors, but we brought vendors in from all over our regional area, and everyone seemed pretty pleased with the event. So I think it's a good start and an opportunity for us to really make this a community thing going forward, a family-friendly thing. I will say the biggest lesson learned is that we have to have test stations for people selling consoles, because we had an area, the 3 of us had set up an area in the corner with consoles running for people to play. And I think about half the day those were inoperable because people were testing machines out before they were being sold, or wiping profiles off of Xbox Ones. So probably should have anticipated that, but it's okay.
Right. Yeah, it was a cool day just to, besides family, just to hang out with some of the friends, like the gaming people that we've met on YouTube, people on Twitter, all that stuff, just to all be in one room and just be joking. It was extremely like lighthearted. It wasn't super stressful or anything like that. It was just a cool time to just hang out with people and talk and talk about games. I remember just like looking over to Danton and making jokes about, whatever he had on the table, and he was trying to help me fix an NES, and that was a mess when you have people like coming to your table, and I was changing out pins on an NES. I took out the old pins and set it next to the new pins, and then someone started talking to me, and I was like, which ones were the new ones? Which ones were the old? So I grabbed what I thought was the new. It was the old. And so I tested it. I was like, oh no, I got to take it apart again. And so there was just a lot of jokes going on. It was just cool to be around friends.
Yeah. And I think another thing too, that I was really surprised and pleased by was, we've had some experiences, I think all of us selling stuff in the past, and I was amazed. I don't know if any of you had a different experience than I did, but I didn't have a single person who came up and was kind of berating what I had on the table, what I'd priced it at, trying to lowball me. Nobody did that. Everybody was just, it seemed like genuinely excited to be there, what was happening. And I maybe had one guy who asked for a bundle deal, but everybody else, again, we priced stuff reasonably, so there's no reason to argue, but that was refreshing. I kind of figured there'd be one or two kind of snooty collectors coming in and beating us up, but they didn't.
Yeah, and the most expensive NES game that was on my table was like $6. Yeah, it was filled with commons, but people were like, "Oh, $2 for this? No problem." And so, I mean, some of that is pricing, and
right.
We just wanted to move things and get rid of it, but made it nice to buy as well, because I probably bought just as much as I sold.
Well, that's a nice thing. I mean, a lot of these vendors, like you said, are a couple hours away from us, so even for our benefit, gathering them all in one room so we can shop at them too is a huge help.
Right.
Yeah, I joked with my wife. It was so funny because I had her run out and get $150 in lower smaller bills, so we had change for the table. And then we did this on Sunday, and then Monday morning I go to do my deposit, count up all my cash, and keep in mind my kids have been buying. Every time I turned around, they're buying something new. I'm buying something. Count up my cash. I have $152. I made a $2 profit on the cash.
I bought your Zapper for $2.
Oh, thank you, Andy. You put me over the top. Luckily, I also had a Square credit card reader, so I did get a deposit
Which
from them.
The
It did save the day. I didn't spend it all. So
that's hilarious. Yeah, for some reason our kids were in the cash bags. Your kids, my kids, and they were like, "Oh, how much does that cost? I'll be right back. Let me go to my dad's unlimited stash here and just get what I need." And no vendors were asking any questions. They're just like, "Oh, okay, sounds good."
Yeah.
I think our buddy Brandon from Watertown was selling, and it was one of those moments where my kids were rating his toys that he had. He had like Pez dispensers, and they're like, they're only $3. And they're, of course, take that times however many you're buying here, settle down. So it was one of those moments I was like, well, you take $2 for these. Don't buy anything else, please.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was great. I mean, I'm excited for what we could potentially do with this and growing it going forward. Obviously, we're all fans of the gaming community and conventions that we all travel to. So to have something local that turned out to be relatively pain-free to set up, get going, and a lot of people seem to enjoy, it's good. I'm excited for next year.
Yeah, it can only grow, I think. And we see that there's a need for it in our community. If you really think of where we're located in Fargo, I mean, there really isn't much when it comes to like gaming conventions or anything like that that is dedicated to video games. In order for you to take part in something like that, you got to maybe go to Minneapolis, maybe, and there really isn't much there. And so to do something in our area and to bring everybody together, like, it could only get bigger, I think.
Yeah, I agree. For anyone who was out there and showed up and attended, to all our friends who came out and set up a table, you know who you are. We appreciate it. We appreciate the support. we hope you all had as much fun as we did, and we hope to do this next year. I want to do like a high five with you guys right now, but we're online. We can't. Like, go team.
I'm dancing for you guys, so
Ooh.
Dancing.
Yeah, that's the next year. Nate does not get to control the music because
was my chiptune music driving you insane?
It wasn't the chiptune music. It was you doing those awful dances and then not breaking eye contact with me while you were doing it.
Yeah. Ladies love that.
I mean, I can't unsee that. Is the problem?
They say, "Wow, he's kind of stalker-esque." Makes me feel a little unsafe, but I like that he's bold. They love that.
I mean, I've seen Planet Earth. That's how the mating things happen, just like that.
I've learned.
It was like that combined with Night at the Roxbury is what that is. Pretty much exactly what that was.
You don't move your body, but just move your shoulders and just stare.
But you crushed my soul. You crushed my soul.
It works every time.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah. It was the chiptune music does it for me every time. So
nice.
We had a little trivia going on at our table. Like if like Mega Man 2 or something came on, it's like, well, what level is this on? And like people were shouting it back and forth of what they thought it was, and it was just kind of fun.
Nice. Yeah.
Nice. So outside of our little shindig, there was some pretty exciting news from GDC. Google unveiled what they're doing in the gaming realm, and it's called Stadia, which is terrible. Not Google gaming, not something that doesn't sound like a byproduct you don't want in your like canned ham. I don't know. It's just such a bad name.
They use Google Play on something that half of it isn't even playing.
You're right. They already have Google Play. They completely blew that. But what they laid out, which the internet was very quick to rip this apart. I understand the concerns, but I guess I have a more optimistic look at this, at the potential of what this means. I feel like when you look at what Xbox is already doing and what they're talking about from their camp, what they've laid out here is not that far off in the future, and it's not completely unachievable, like a lot of people seem to think. Basically, what Google laid out is following their test launch that they did last fall with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I believe it was. It's basically a gaming platform that exists all within Google Chrome. So essentially, if you have a solid internet connection and access to a device that can run Google Chrome, whether it's a Chromecast, a phone, a tablet, a PC, you just log in and out of a game in real time, and it should run at its max settings. They're saying everything will be 1080p, 60 frames per second. At a minimum, should go to 4K, 60 frames per or 30 frames per second, and then up to 8K, which seemed absurd. And they did demo it live with somebody logging in and out of multiple devices on stage. And I don't know. I guess they left out some details like exactly what games are coming to it. It did announce that they're doing the next Doom. And we obviously know that Ubisoft is behind them. I feel like that's a nice nod that they have Ubisoft, but Ubisoft also went whole hog on the Wii U. So maybe Ubisoft doesn't have the best judge of where they should be sending their games, but it's a great premise. And the fact that you can do all this stuff, they've got tools in there to help independent game developers. They stressed bringing back of couch co-op. And they talked about couch co-op and the reason why it went away. And a lot of that was they were stressing its rendering, like hardware limitations have kind of made it difficult for developers on these AAA games to keep couch co-op going because the hardware is so taxed by what it's putting on there. It's sort of died off, but with Stadia and you're running remotely from the cloud, you could have 6 people on a couch and they all log into their own instance and they're all in the game couch co-op together. I don't know how much of a drawing point that will be for a lot of people, but it was kind of an eye opener. I hadn't really looked at why that had died off. from that angle. I don't know. I guess I watched that and I'm skeptical. I mean, I want to use it like everybody else, but being their testing last fall was so positive. I'm excited by it. Like, I want to give this the benefit of the doubt. We don't know enough yet, but I was a little surprised that the internet seems to have just written this off already. I don't know what you guys thought, if you saw it. Maybe I'm crazy. I'm not usually the optimistic one though, so who knows?
I think the couch co-op is attractive to me. That is something that I just miss, is sitting down next to someone playing some video games, enjoying that camaraderie and goofing off. I kind of miss that. And that is really weird that, I mean, it just kind of went away. And I never really questioned why. I just figured that's the trend and everybody's doing like online playing or whatever. But there's many times where we try to get together for like game night and try to figure out, okay, what do we play? What do we play? Instead of, you know, some of the retro games, we want to play some of the new stuff. And you can't really. I mean, Call of Duty, of course, you can play stuff like that in Battlefront. But yeah, that's just something that I think is kind of missing, and I would love to see come back. So that's kind of exciting.
Well, and it's going to help regular multiplayer across the web as well, because like right now, you're kind of beholden to whoever has the worst ping, right, on those multiplayer games. And with this, every single person that's playing is going to have the same ping, the same instance, the same, you know, everything. So It truly is an equal playing field as far as that is.
Well, and kind of along the lines of that too, they mentioned, you know, when you take out limitations in hardware and you have a central cloud processor, something like 1,000-person battle royale is theoretically possible now.
Right, because especially when the hardware is not something that's affordable to the common person as a console, you know.
Right.
We're all of a sudden just jumping into technology that's like 4 years away. If you were going to box it up into a console and for an affordable price, you know.
Yep.
Speaking of price, they didn't throw a price on it, right?
They didn't yet. They haven't announced how that's going to work. They did say it would launch in the US and UK markets sometime in 19. You know, and realistically, there are going to be problems with high-speed internet access. There are black holes across the US. I don't know what the UK is like. So some will be alienated by this inevitably. And they haven't really given performance tests. There's not enough information to see if you have high speed, but not the best high speed, what is your performance going to be like? Along with it, they also did unveil, because there's no console, they did unveil the Stadia controller, which does something interesting, because usually when you're playing an online game and you're like linking a controller, especially to a mobile device, it's Bluetooth. So there's inherently like some latency, but the way the Stadia controller works is it doesn't tie into any device. It just ties into the same Wi-Fi signal pinging directly off the Stadia servers. So in theory, they get the best possible reaction time without latency. Again, nothing's proven, but it's kind of a smart idea. And it looks like your typical current gen controller. It was almost like a morph between what the PlayStation 4 has and the Xbox One. So, and you can use obviously any controller with it also. That's just the one they're pushing with it.
Yeah, this is definitely an opportunity, I think, probably to maximize profits for the gaming world. You know, isn't the console typically the big cost for these like Microsoft or PlayStation, putting those together, mass producing them, and I think they're taking a loss on them anyways in order to sell as much as they can for software. So I think that would definitely cut this out to a point where you're going to see some pretty high profit margins, I would think.
Yeah, and you're also not having to negotiate, you know, the licensing deals as publishers or printing to a disc, you know, whatever that disc cost is. And then the other thing is with the way console markets work is usually by the time the console launches, the specs are below top tier PC. So the other benefit that they kind of touted was that this puts developers for the first time in a position to not box themselves in with the creation of a game. It should be limitless in what they want to create. They don't have to develop to outdated specs. It should always be on the bleeding edge, which is cool.
That also gets rid of generations almost altogether. You know,
right.
It's just a constant upgrade.
Yep.
So I don't know if they're going to put like versions on it or say like this game runs on this version. Who knows how that'll work, but
yeah,
I don't know. There's definitely some concerns about this because I mean it changes the way how the whole gaming industry has worked for 30, 40 years and flips it on its head. So
yeah, I agree. And at the same time, though, it seems like the absolute next logical progression. I mean, it's not, for me, it's not even just gaming. It's all media has gone here.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think the day of physical media is slowly dissolving where it just won't exist. And that's kind of a bummer for any type of collector, video game collector. You have nothing to collect. You know, you have nothing to go back and be like, wow, look at this. This is really cool 20 years from now, 30 years from now. Like we can do right now with NES cartridges, Atari, you know, whatever. So, yeah, it's almost like an end of an era happening at some point. Probably sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be worried about with game preservation, especially when they're making their own games for this thing.
Yeah.
Those games will not see another avenue. You know, they're not going to get a physical release on anything else. And, you know, how many games now don't work or the multiplayer doesn't work because they shut them down, you know, years ago because there's nobody playing it. Well, all of a sudden the entire game is online. So they, as soon as they decide that that's not profitable, the game's gone, you know?
Yeah. And we've all been there with current, you know, we've seen, well, in the gaming world, we've seen the Wii shop go away. There are games that are just straight gone. You know, when you're a person who's subscribed to Hulu or Netflix and one of your favorite movies or television series disappears and it's no longer on syndication and you can't easily go out and find DVDs for some of this stuff anymore, that sucks. So I definitely share those concerns, especially as a collector like you guys. The other thing that I think is going to kind of factor into this is what will the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox console look like. We know Xbox just formalized when the rollout of their new discless Xbox One comes out. You know, if we end up, people are kind of scoffing at Stadia, and there is a difference potentially because you're not doing it all online, but if one of the two or both come out next gen and they do not take any sort of physical media, Stadia becomes a lot more attractive in the marketplace. Sure, you're still dependent on bandwidth speeds, and you don't have the reliability of a custom box in your home where everything is built to run to spec. But if all of my options eliminate any physical version of a game, then why pay the $500 to throw a box under my TV when I could just have a Chromecast dongle for $20 and do the same thing in theory?
Yeah.
Right. Can you imagine walking into stores like Best Buy or, Walmart, Target, and not even have a video game section anymore?
I feel like it's sadly getting there. I mean,
they've definitely have shrunken. Best Buy, I love shopping there, but their gaming section just gets smaller and smaller. And so at some point to walk in and never see a video game, never see a console, and that's really crazy to think about.
I agree.
You don't get to go up to the glass case at Walmart or Target, Toys R Us, whatever it was. And you're just rushing for a Google Chromecast. They're going to have those behind the cases. And that's it.
What these places are going to need to do, like the Stadia store and like Steam and all those places, they're going to need to have a VR experience that replicates the bargain bin. So I can digitally pluck discounted titles out of a bin to just satisfy that need.
Yep.
Yes.
So I wonder if this will go the same direction as kind of what happened in Netflix, where Netflix used to have a ton of movies on there, like almost nearly anything that you ever wanted. And then all of the movie production houses were like, well, it's going to cost more if you want to renew. They just kept upping their price to the point where it didn't make sense to have all that stuff. So now you look at Netflix, it barely has anything on there. I mean, it has a small rotation of good classic movies every once in a while, but you're not going to see that. If you think of a movie right now that you want to see, it's probably not on there right now,
Yeah,
Right.
the sheer amount of volume is way down.
Yep. So, like, I mean, they're basically an in-house studio for the most part. A lot of people get it for the Netflix shows, movies.
Yeah.
So then you're right back to the exclusives,
Yep.
So what happens to the EA?
Let's push this a little bit further though, and go, what does this mean for retro video game stores? Like, we have a couple of local retro video game stores. What does this mean? Does this mean that business is going to be booming like crazy and we're going to see retro prices skyrocket even more? Or are we going to see it digress? I don't know. It'd be interesting.
Yeah,
if we
because
ever get to that
if
point.
at some point there's a line in the sand where you cannot inherently bring on new retro because the media stopped,
Yeah. It'd be interesting to know what would happen to the market.
Well, yeah, and in theory too, this would finally kill off GameStop and EB. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's
they would have to sell retro. They would have to go back to carts.
I would say
whatever.
I would say the only leg up that this really has right now, as far as like the amount of content and the quality you'd get on it, is that Netflix is now in a point where anyone can create a competitive service that functions the same. I don't think at this moment, and maybe Stadia is too ahead of the curve and it won't live up to the dream anyway, but I don't think at this moment in time there is anyone else positioned infrastructure wise globally that could run this the way Google can with the amount of servers, locations, and hardware.
The amount of cash that they can lose on this project for 10 years.
Exactly. Yes. And there's no way this isn't a massive cash suck. But we've seen Microsoft do it and just lose their ass on the Xbox for years and years and years too, until they started making traction.
Yeah. So here's the big question. It launches. Do you pay $59.99 to not necessarily own a game, but be able to have access to that game on Stadia?
I mean,
I'm the guy that still doesn't have the Nintendo like Classic on the Switch. I haven't paid for the subscription on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, a couple of years ago, I would have said no. But I mean, even at our game exchange, my sister picked up an Xbox One for my nephew, and I literally looked at her and said, "Don't go out buying games. Just set up an account, get him Game Pass, and let him go."
I was thinking like if they're actually going to do it on a piecemeal.
Oh, so you're talking like not 59. You're buying individual games.
Like one.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're buying access to one single game for $60 that you technically don't own.
no, I'd be out. I just couldn't.
I don't know, man. Can you? I mean, can you get developers the money they need to make a game if you don't sell the games?
Right.
Assuming this is a catch-all for every piece of content video game related. I mean, you're instantly in the thousands of games, and then if you're paying only by the amount of time they're getting played, or maybe who's streaming it, I don't know. That's something I hadn't really thought about.
Well, and the scary part is about that is if you start doing it that model, that changes the way the games are made and played. If you're talking about how much a game is played, you're going to start looking at like how free-to-play models use like mind games to keep people playing a certain game.
Yeah.
So you're intrinsically a worse game. Overall.
And that's something that we kind of didn't touch on, but they were very heavy on how content creators and game developers are incentivized and rewarded with Stadia, because Google, of course, also owns YouTube. So that is another huge piece to this. So yeah, I mean, there's potential avenues for other revenue, but yeah, like you said, it might just completely upend the type of games that are made because of the way that they can collect cash from them.
Somewhere along the line, I think there's a downside, but we won't know it until the structure's out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I just as someone from the generation we're from, and we had the opportunity to exist in a world where the internet wasn't there. I mean, I think there's an overall downside to all of this. I mean, The internet is a wonderful and awful thing. I mean, putting everything on it all the time is convenient, but yeah, what is it? What happens at the end of the day when the internet no longer exists? We're basically monkeys again.
Yeah. I mean,
they aren't teaching children cursive, for Christ's sake. They won't even be able to read the Constitution.
America.
You look at that thing that passed in Europe about copyright
GDPR?
laws. No, it's a new thing about like links and copyright stuff. Basically, every website that takes user uploads is going to have to run it against all copyrighted material. Basically, like what Google does, but
right,
it has to pass that first before it can even go live. Otherwise, Google or YouTube would be held liable for that copyright.
Yikes.
Yeah.
How do you tame that beast?
Well, I mean, Google's has probably the most sophisticated one that they've been building for a decade, and it still is kind of a piece of crap. So how do you expect every website out there to do that?
Right.
I think what's going to happen is they're just going to be like, well, Europe can't get on our website.
VPNs, man. VPNs.
Yep, pretty much.
Well, we talked about Stadia a lot longer than I thought we were going to, so.
It's a good subject.
It's an interesting subject.
Like, have you seen kind of what Sony's been doing behind the scenes here? They stopped selling digital cards or digital games and cards in stores. So supposedly,
okay.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to buy like the digital card for. You probably do PSN cards yet, but not necessarily game specific ones.
I always hated those cards, especially when they started putting them in the cases. Yeah. So I'm buying a case to get a card. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
I'll be honest, I've never purchased those cards. I have no idea what they do. They seem pointless to me.
They are.
Because you can do everything on PSN anyways, right?
Right. It's kind of like you would only do it if you had a gift card to a store, or if you're a grandma who wants to buy happy Merry Christmas, Johnny. Let's go on PlayStation Network. I'll let you pick something out. It's something you can wrap up.
Or that you don't trust Sony with your credit card because they might get hacked for a month straight.
Okay. Yeah, that's never happened. PSN wasn't down for a summer, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But then on the flip side, they lowered the price of their streaming, the PlayStation Now, for
really?
$60 a year, I think, which is
the whole $5.
Yeah, no, it was like $120 a year. So they cut it in half.
Oh, now I was thinking plus. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's definitely
cheaper than Game Pass then. Except you can't download the games, right?
Yeah, you can now. Yep.
Jeez, they must be feeling the burn from Game Pass.
Yeah.
What is it? PlayStation View, you said?
Now. Yep.
Now. Okay, what is that?
So you can already do like what Stadia does on there. It's streaming.
Okay.
But you can also download the game.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's basically been around for 2.5 years. It beat Xbox Game Pass to the market, but until just now, it sounds like that you couldn't ever download the games, so they were very laggy, depending on your connection. I think even at peak connections, you wouldn't want to be playing, like, say, Call of Duty multiplayer on that.
Yeah. And then, don't take my word for it, but from what I've gathered, it's a lot of PS3 games, It's not so much like Game Pass where they're getting... I've been playing Just Cause 4 on Game Pass, which came out last fall.
Yeah, they just announced like 3 games on Game Pass that are coming out day and date with launch, like Killer Queen Black and
yeah.
So
yeah, right there. So now I don't think I'm going to get that on Switch because it's already free
blasphemy.
there. I know.
No, that's interesting. I hadn't heard the price cut on now. That's, I mean, I think that's an indication that Xbox had been doing something right.
Yep.
For them to correct course to that extent. And really, I feel like PlayStation Now is another one of those things, almost like the Vita or just anything else, or even the VR, where Sony just kind of, for the most parts, puts things out there and just lets them struggle along. Because they don't market to them or support them or push them.
Yep.
But you said they were pushing VR now too, right? They announced a bunch of new titles and
yes, No Man's Sky is getting a VR mode, which I am very excited about that. For the third time, I'll be coming back to No Man's Sky.
You and like 3 other people, and the 3 other people being the devs on No Man's Sky, are excited about that.
Yes, I'm going to hang out with them. We're going to have fun in there.
Yeah, I guess I could boot mine back up. It wasn't the worst game I've ever played, but man, there's just too many systems that kill you.
Yeah, I mean, for the VR stuff, I just want to get in my ship, fly around, to zone out in space for a while.
Nice. Taking LSD before, just really trip out.
Yeah.
Do some weird stuff with some friendly aliens you just met.
You scan them first.
Yeah. I hope the next procedurally generated planet alien has giant breasted whatever aliens.
That would turn that game around quick.
Nate's looking at me like I'm crazy, but now he's like really deeply in thought about this. Like, yes.
I gotta get No Man's Sky VR.
I need VR now.
Oh, I do want VR really bad right now, so.
Yeah, they sold.
I'm holding out for MGC.
They said they sold over 4 million of them now.
Really? That's a good install base for something like that.
Yep.
I feel like maybe I'm still like hung up on the newness of it. Like I gotta try it out. I'm like, this is so cool, and maybe I wouldn't love it long term. I'm not sure.
There's something to that for sure. Like when it blows your mind the first time, after a while, it kind of just, some of the games are like, okay, it's the same thing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, overall, it feels like a really cool experience, but yeah, the more you do it, the less, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a fully realized offshoot yet. I mean, I still really enjoy mine. I'm happy that I got it, but.
Is there ever a point where you're like, I want to play it, but I don't want to set it all up and have to go through that whole...
Yep.
Yeah, every time I play it, that's the thing.
Like, I just don't want to, but I put so much money into it.
Yeah.
I gotta set it up.
And it's worth the effort to do it. Like, some of those experiences are worth it to me, but it's still, yeah, like you said, every time I'm thinking about, gosh, I really want to set that up, and then is the light right? I'm going to have to sync my stupid Move controller again.
I have to stand.
I have to stand. Video games are supposed to be lazy. Why am I moving? Yeah.
All right. I'm so sick and tired of talking about PlayStation, Xbox, Google. I want to talk about the Nintendo Switch and how awesome it is.
You sound genuinely
and some new
about.
No, I'm not. There's some new potential models that they are revealing to us. Maybe, kind of. Right.
Yes. What do you speak of? Yeah. So
you had this look like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. So I think the thing is the rumor has existed for quite some time, or speculation. We're at the point where you typically see a revision hardware from Nintendo, and then one of these hardware manufacturers, I don't know what the full story, but apparently they had physical prototype of a different Switch model, and it sounds like there may be a Switch Pro, slightly beefed up, maybe like the new 3DS, and then a standalone Switch Mini, which the Pro piece, I don't know about that. I don't know what that means, what that would mean for changes in GPU, or if it's just resolution, whatnot. But I think the idea of a Switch Mini, to me, is interesting. As someone who has kids, and I get really nervous every time my 5-year-old undocks my Switch and like runs up or down the stairs with it. So if I could have a cost-effective version to throw at him so that when he inevitably crushes it, I would feel okay with that.
What is that? Is it just the 3DS? I mean...
Yeah, but I feel like that's how 90% of people play their Switch anyway. Right?
Undocked?
Yeah.
I played mine only docked.
I do too, but I think we're vastly in the minority.
Yeah, I'm mostly undocked.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there could be some benefits. To me, though, like, a mini is not attractive. It's not something that I'm like, oh yeah, I need a smaller Switch to carry around. I mean, it's not that big anyways.
It's pretty big, man.
Well...
The Switch is pretty big.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No, it just, like, it's portable. It's more portable than anything else, and the 3DS XL isn't that much smaller than it. I mean,
well,
if you really put it in perspective,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's not any different. To me, it's not necessary. Let's just continue to build on something good that we have going on. Pro, I could see, if it's going to be something that, I don't know any specs, and I'm sure nobody knows the specs right now, but if it was pushing 4K or...
Oh, that's not going to happen.
Or something, I don't know. Maybe it's worth it. I don't know what would make a Pro awesome besides pushing something that would be like a 4K, like the PlayStation Pro.
I think you're going to see a better resolution screen, and maybe the ability for it to do... Maybe what they could do is improve the GPU a little bit to the point where it could run 1080 natively on its tablet instead of only through the television. I think one thing you're kind of overlooking too with the Mini is that doesn't mean that it can't be docked. They could still dock it in a different way, and then through another set of Joy-Con or a Pro controller, you could still play remotely. So you'd have
another $100 in Joy-Con, mini Joy-Cons.
Well, but I don't think they would do mini. I think they wouldn't detach, right? So you would just everything else would work. It's just that those are static. So I think there's
so it's a 3DS. I'm just
I understand what you're saying because you and I both
kill the 3DS.
You and I both don't like portable gaming, and I'm with you on that. But I think we are a very select group.
Yes, I know we are.
So they need to carry on the legacy of the 3DS because they're not going to carry on. There's no point for them at this point to have competing handhelds because while the Switch is a home console, too, it's the replacement for both. So I think it kind of makes sense.
And 3, it's a way to bring more money in because people have to have it.
Yes.
Like us.
Yes. And so far with the Switch, they've been fairly light on like themed or exclusive versions of Switch hardware.
Joy-Cons, that's about it.
Right, Joy-Cons, but it's nothing like the frickin' 3DS. They got like a variant every... I don't know, 2 variants every quarter for the last 7 years. It's nuts.
What is the Switch? It would have been Splatoon, Odyssey,
Pokemon.
Was there any others?
Ultimate, Smash Ultimate. So,
what color was Pokemon Joy-Cons?
Well, it was. I think it was a different logo on the dock, and I think there might have been something on the back of the Switch itself. I'm not sure. Most of the bundles have dock variants. Also, is kind of the thing.
Okay, I didn't know that. Interesting.
I don't know. This thing sounds kind of messy, though. Like, I don't necessarily trust them making a Pro and doing it the same way like Xbox and PlayStation do, where it's just like, it's the same games and it works better. They do like that whole, like, these games only work on the new Switch.
These 3 games that we will release for it, and that is all.
Right.
Because no developer is going to segment their market like that.
The new Zelda game. They'll throw the new Zelda game, new Metroid, and a new Mario game. So then you're forced to buy that because you're not going to play them anywhere else. Yeah,
I really hope that's not the upgrade. I really hope it's just longer battery life because it's more efficient, and the fact that they put a higher resolution screen and can get like the extra guts that bump the dock up to a higher resolution to just run native on the system. And I hope it doesn't affect anything like game performance wise.
Yeah.
Okay, big question. So if they do those things, are you buying one?
I would be more inclined to buy a mini if it comes out so that I could have my kids use that. I don't know that I
3DS.
I fell off I fell off the Switch bandwagon pretty hard in the last 9 months. It was all I played for most of the year I got it. 2017 I suppose, and then or did I get it in 20 I don't know when I got it, but anyway, yeah, I'm kind of done.
Yeah, I sadly with you. Like I was genuinely excited about the Switch, and it is a great system, great games, but it's kind of lost its luster for me, and I think some of that had to do with the library of games. Now I have no idea what's good, what's not, and I've just kind of lost touch with the games that are being released. There's nothing that has really caught my attention. Like, I want to play that. I mean, Smash Ultimate was one that I picked up. That's the last Switch game I've picked up. But everything in between that, there wasn't much for me. And so...
Yeah, their complete failure to address, curate, and update the system interfaces and their shop it's completely ruined it for me. And then the fact that limited runs jumping in and like super rare games, like I mean, I'm inundated by overpriced ports of indie games to my Switch to the point where what was an exciting novelty at the beginning, and I was buying a lot of these games. I just look at them and I'm like, nope, it's gonna be $150 on PS4 like 3 weeks from now. Screw it. And I'm just buying first party. I mean, I'm gonna buy Yoshi's Crafted World on Friday for my kids, but there's not another game on my radar for this system.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have one that I'm anticipating, one that I'm excited about, and I feel like there's a lack of buzz with the games. Like everyone was excited for Smash, everybody was excited, and people were talking about it. And now, I mean, if people are talking about the Yoshi game, I mean, they're not that excited about it. No one's like, "Oh, I can't wait for this game to come out." And it's just missing that excitement piece right now. And that's just kind of how video gaming is kind of at this point. You know, we're going to see probably a lot more titles being released for the holiday season, I would think. But
hope so.
Yeah, I haven't played my Switch in a long time, which is sad to say. So
yeah, mine's mostly situational. That's why I played undocked mostly, because if I have the TV available, I'll probably play PlayStation or Xbox, you know?
Yep.
I'm bringing it to MGC. I will, just in case. You know, maybe we can get a good smash in before we hit the vendor floor. Who knows?
Doesn't bring back the days of Street Pass, though. That's what you really need. At
Street
MGC.
Pass was like straight up scary. Street Pass was like Nintendo's like open window to pedophilia. I don't know why they agreed.
Oh, I love that. I love that part. Like you see that person and you're like, oh, I wonder if I saw that person today. Like deep down, like I wonder whoever made this character look like this. I want to try and guess who I saw that was that person.
It's like the Tinder of Nintendo. It's so creepy. I always hated the idea of Street Pass. It's so weird. Ugh.
Craigslist ad. I love it.
Because at least 1 in 10 is a furry. At least 1 in 10 people on Street Pass.
If you live in Portland, it's like 4 out of 6. Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, we're all ranking on it, but I mean, it really is a cool console. It's kind of in a weird state, I think, for a lot of gamers at the moment.
So what about the Mini? I mean, if it doesn't have detachables, if it doesn't have rumble, like they're kind of saying, like that straight up breaks some of the games. Not like somebody needs to play 1-2 Switch, but
I think it breaks few of the games. I think outside of Nintendo who's leaning too much into HD Rumble. Like, and even me, I play with the PlayStation 4 controller through a Mayflash adapter, and like I got all the way through Odyssey doing those like rumble sensitive areas just fine. Like, because I didn't need it, I just jumped around until I got it. It's not that difficult.
Sure.
I mean, I agree with you. There might be some stuff that's funky or you can't do, but I think overwhelmingly, just the amount of games that will work in the compatibility list is so high that it makes sense for them to get something that comes in at a price point of about like 160, 180.
Yeah, if they can get that.
Because if you can get that sticker shock, where you're separated far enough from 200, that's an easy pickup for a lot of parents around the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And it replaces then the price point of where, their normal 3DS lines have started at and, worked below. But yeah, to me, there's a lot of questions, and just, I think the name itself kind of limits what Nintendo would do with the Switch, because it is called the Switch for a reason. So if it no longer switches, I mean, yeah, that defeats the purpose. The brick.
It goes on and off.
Yes. Yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe it's just all bullshit too. I mean, will there be a Switch revision? Yes. Will these two options be it? Who knows?
By the time you hear this, maybe they've already said.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe we, I don't know. I feel like we're going to be off on this one since we like spot on predicted the Labo VR guess. I mean, we can't hit lightning twice,
Are you sure that saying the next Switch is going to be made out of cardboard as well?
Oh
my gosh.
Yep. That's it.
The new
build your own
the
Switch.
Actual Nintendo Labo. They've been prepping us this whole time.
You guys should check your Target. Did you see that? They're like down to like $17. The Labo kits.
Really?
Yeah.
All of them?
I think Target's like getting rid of that section.
Well, there's a lot of it. So
yeah.
I don't need it, but I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Dang it.
To the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. I'm moving to the country, I'm gonna eat me a lot of peaches. I'm moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. I'm moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. Peaches come from a can, they were put there by a man in a factory downtown.
Okay, time for the fail bag, where we answer 20-year-old questions from old gaming magazines as if they were addressed to us. Today we're looking in Nintendo Power number 18.
Ooh.
And they have a whole section on your worst Nintendo nightmare. And there's some pretty good ones in here. I'll start off with Neil from Cypress, California. He says, I was playing Super Mario Bros. 3, and I finally made it to King Koopa. I was thirsty, so before I took him on, I paused the game and got a Pepsi. I took a long drink, then set it down. A friend walked in just then to see how far I was along. My parakeet had climbed out of its cage to observe. Then
This
my
took
friend,
a twist.
yeah, then my friend jumped onto the bed, startling the bird, which took off and crashed into my Pepsi, knocking it against the reset button, and it reset my game, but worse yet, spilled Pepsi all over me.
Pepsi all over you is worse
than ruining his NES,
Absolutely.
Apparently.
I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say that this probably isn't a factual story. It sounds really good. I mean, it's very elaborate. I mean, parakeets specifically hitting the reset button with the spilt Pepsi, which he took a long drink of, so wasn't the Pepsi still in his hand? I'm confused. Why are you on your bed with your friend?
He just
all
wanted
this
a
is
Pepsi.
weird. It's probably a Pepsi like spokesperson.
I was gonna say it's a Pepsi commercial. I took a long drink of that Pepsi.
Of that satisfying Pepsi. Mm.
Yeah, you have the right one, baby. No, that was that Coke or Pepsi commercial? Right
That was
baby?
Pepsi, wasn't
Pepsi?
it? I think so, with Ray Charles.
Diet Pepsi.
Yeah.
Ray Charles got the right one, baby.
Nice head nod.
Uh-huh.
Ray Charles.
I did the.
Oh, that
That's
guy.
right,
Oh, got
Ray
it.
Charles.
Nice.
Now I know who you're talking
the
about.
blind guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's too many things that just aren't coming across as factual.
Right.
Very detailed, long sips. A parakeet? Nobody has a parakeet. That's not even a real bird.
And they can see Pepsi cans.
Yeah.
Yes. I would have believed it if you said my pet parakeet got out and pressed the unpause button with its beak. I'd been like, oh, that sucks.
Well, he has a parakeet and a friend. Like, this doesn't add up already.
Right. There are parakeet people and there are people. Yeah, I call shenanigans. False story.
Okay, let's try Trevor's.
This better be good, Trevor. You get a lot to live up to right now.
Says, I was about to finish Karate Kid when the screen started getting fuzzy. Then the power went out. When it came back on, my game was gone. I was mad because I had told my sister that she could play Super Mario Brothers when I was done. God must be a girl.
Oh, I get the ending.
Yeah.
That's great. I hate when that happens. I remember that as a kid so many times. I'd get far into a game and all of a sudden you get a glitch screen and you're like, okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do? And you're like small tapping the console. You're like, no, just a little bit. And then you like tap it enough where the screen goes absolutely berserk and you're like,
You're done.
I can still play. I can do this.
But hopefully you were
You're
smart enough
playing
not
with
to be nearing the end of Karate Kid. Hopefully you were playing something
No,
better.
I would never make it that far. That's impressive that he made it that far.
Yeah. Or
But
sad.
I've had it happen to Super Mario Brothers 3 multiple times where as a kid you're getting, I mean, that's a long game to play at one sitting.
For me, it was Mega Man.
Frustrating.
The Mega Man games, and I never wrote down the codes. So, like, when I got, like, 3 stages in and it glitched out, that was the end of my game.
I'm done with it.
Or on the opposite side, you left the power on all night long.
Done it. Yep.
Well, how else do you keep a game going?
Right. Exactly.
That's when you shut the TV off and then your mom comes around and you're like, oh, you left that on. No! Why did you do that?
Nathan has a similar story. He says, when I finally beat Bowser in Super Mario Bros. 3, my brother and I wanted to take a picture. So we turned off all the lights. Unfortunately, the lights were all connected to the wall socket and it turned off my game.
Oh, that sucks. That sucks. That I believe, and that is terrible.
I am so glad that that's not a thing anymore. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a newer house that has that turn the power off to the sockets.
Right.
Smile. Oh, no. And then you're trying to explain it to all your buddies at school and you're like, you didn't beat it. You don't have any proof. I did it. It was a proof.
Yeah, that's a bummer, man.
Yeah, I just want to see their face because, like, the joy just immediately getting sucked out of their face. Like,
that kind of like brings me back to like a horror story from my Rent-A-Center days where I installed a home theater system for a lady. Well, actually, she sent it home. She insisted that she wanted to take it home. She's going to set it up. She called us and we went to go see why it wasn't working. I'm like, okay, everything here is right. Can I plug something else into this outlet to make sure it's working? Because it's an apartment, right? She's like, I don't have anything. I'm like, you're a woman. Do you have like curling iron and blow dryer? I mean, anything, like just a small. Boy, that was it sounded more degrading than I meant it to. I'm just like any small electronic that I can test. She's like, nope, nothing. So I take this thing home. I take this thing back to the store, bring another one out, same thing. Nothing happens. And then finally I walk over and there's a wall switch to that outlet. And then she returned everything because they must be crappy stereos because they didn't work. I'm like, you understand how power works. Power works. Not.
wow.
So this loosely ties into this.
Yep.
Horror stories from my terrible job from many years ago. It's not as bad as not getting a picture of Bowser being defeated, but it still sucked.
Yep. So we're going to go even worse.
Is that even possible?
Oh, yeah, it definitely can. Karen, she says, have I got a story for you? I bought 2 Game Boys for my sons for Christmas. A few weeks ago, I heard a scream from upstairs. David, who is 11, had flushed the toilet while he was holding 4 games, and 3 of them fell in. 2 were flushed and 1 was left floating. We retrieved it and dried it off, and it still played. The other 2 stopped up the toilet. The maintenance man in our apartments thought he could dissolve them with lye, so he poured it in and let it soak for 24 hours.
No.
It was still stopped for the next day or so, so he decided to take the plumbing apart to remove the obstruction. When we got the games out, they looked fine. The lye hadn't even hurt them. The labels were fine. We rinsed them with clear water, and we let them dry and tried them, and they both played perfectly. The only problem I have with my Game Boy is borrowing one from my sons. If you come out with any more puzzle games, I'll have to buy one for myself.
That doesn't sound like a horror story. That sounds like a redemption story.
No.
Kind of, yeah. I guess I didn't read it far enough. I thought the toilet would have been bad news altogether, but Nintendo stuff, the Game Boy stuff, man, stuff lives.
It's amazing. Just those cartridges were just bulletproof. The NES ones, you've seen people test them by throwing them out in like freezing water and just letting them sit out all winter long, and they clean them up and throw them in. They work just fine.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Game Boy ones were the same way. And I mean, that's pretty impressive. And you kind of almost wonder if Nintendo was like, they even knew like how strong their stuff was that they were making. If they even were like, oh, this isn't even going to make 10 years, and here we are playing them, 30 years later or whatever. And that's pretty impressive.
I think especially given like the lye, because like that should really screwed with like the contacts and the pins, but maybe where it was stopped up in the toilet too. Who knows? If you just poured lye in the bowl and like it didn't drain and
it didn't go down. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, but still crazy, disgusting and crazy.
Gosh. Yeah. There must not be anything.
You think there was just
electrical
a big thing of rope sitting in that toilet as he was? Because everything's like stopped up.
Yeah.
That guy was probably pissed digging around in someone's cornfield.
Oh, come on, man!
Looking for Pokemon Gold, Silver, Ruby.
Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise down there. Oh yeah.
I get pretty leery when it comes to like toilets and stuff like that. So if my kids were like, "Hey, Dad, here's the deal," I flush that down and be like, "Well, I guess we're getting a new toilet, and you're not getting a new game." So, I mean, the Switch games, they'll go right down like it's nothing now. So.
Yeah, those are not stopping anything.
Nope.
They'd probably break as soon as you got in water, too. Who knows?
Yeah.
And finally, we got Richie.
What?
Richie.
What's his name? Richie.
Richie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Richie.
I thought you said Red Chi. I'm like, that's a good name.
He's Red Chi. The artist formerly known as Red Chi.
All my friends call me Red.
Yeah.
Or Chi.
He says, one day, my brother was playing Double Dragon 2 when my mom smelled a fire. Everyone had to evacuate. Everyone left so fast that he forgot to pause his game. Smoke was coming out from the laundry room, but it was just a lint fire. This guy lost his game of, probably got smacked around in Double Dragon just for a lint fire, the most common house fire there is.
Sad.
It is. But Ryan hates Double Dragon anyway. So
I love Double Dragon. Just not the NES ports of the original one.
Well, You should have been like, well, kid, you should have been playing the arcade.
Well, he was playing Double Dragon 2, though, wasn't he?
Yep.
So there you
That-
Okay.
that-
Good.
So we're all
that's
good
fine.
now.
No issues there.
Okay.
Just clean out your lint
All right,
trap
we
once
feel
in a while,
bad for
Mom
you,
and
sir.
Dad. Come on.
So did your parents, when you were younger, say
Yes.
you have to stay away from the screen, otherwise you're going to go blind, right?
Uh-huh.
Yep. So this is a story of the opposite of that. Julie is saying, I'm writing about my son Joseph, who is 11. He is a Nintendo freak who has been legally blind since birth. He started playing when he was 3 and has become a master. Playing Nintendo has changed his life. To start with, he couldn't see moving objects except when they were up close and moving slowly. Then his grandpa bought him an NES. After about a year, we had his vision tested for school, and we were stunned to learn that his vision had improved greatly. The doctors were all as shocked as we were. After talking with Joe, he concluded that he had perfected his vision by playing Nintendo. Since the screen continuously moves, it strengthened his muscles in his eyes, and the doctors have encouraged him to play an hour a day, and more if possible. He was so happy, he asked the doctor about getting a prescription for a couple new games. Okay. The difference now in his sight is unbelievable. The dean of the School of Ophthalmology examined our son and just shook his head. He said it has given him something to recommend for other kids with his problem. His dream is to go to the University of Washington and work for Nintendo developing new games. He even jokes he would like to have Howard Phillips' job. Don't be surprised if an eager kid with glasses walks into your office. That would be my son Joe.
I don't know what to think on that at all.
Yeah, it kind of goes off the rails into like almost advertisement there for a little bit.
I just want a referral to
Right.
that doctor. Like, send me to him when I was
Yeah.
a kid, huh? More Nintendo.
I wish we could track him down and give him a call and be like, hey, do you feel like that was right, or are you insane?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's maybe something of truth there in the screen motion, like strengthening. I mean, I guess, but also just inherently staring at a screen for a long time, I always thought was not good for your vision. So I'm not sure.
Right.
But I guess if you're starting out
This
at
kid-
blind, maybe you can only go up from there.
Right.
Well, no, definitely you can only go out.
Can you imagine hearing that as a kid? All right, you got to get your 2 hours of video game playing in today.
But
okay,
Mom-
sounds good, Mom. I don't want to. I want to read a book.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, that's really funny. You'll play at least an hour or more.
What would be the best game, do you think, for strengthening your vision?
Tetris.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Yeah,
Constant moving pieces. Yeah,
that's
I
true.
mean platformers would be pretty good too, I suppose.
Mhm.
Mario
Or
3.
Barbie.
Oh gosh, that would just. I mean, you can't. I can barely make out what's happening in Barbie. A guy who's legally blind can probably not function in that game.
Love that game.
It's so weird.
I can beat it.
That doesn't mean it's good or that you should like it.
I actually love a lot of games that,
That
I
just-
beat just for that reason.
That just proves that I can actually beat a game.
Does that how eyes actually work? Like I'm a pretty dumb guy when it comes to this type of stuff, but can you strengthen your eyes like that? Like, can you become?
You know, when I was in optometry school, I'm just joking. I don't have a
I
transition.
was like, what?
I-
Where are we going?
Yeah, when I was an optometrist in my former days, the retinas are, I can't BS through it.
I mean,
so,
I-
no idea.
I guess I don't know because it seems like. I mean, I don't know how the muscles and the focusing and everything works, but it seems like when people have like legally blind, like there's typically it's like degenerative stuff
Right.
with your. I mean, I'm
Right.
not familiar with cases where that's not the case, and it's something that you can actually improve upon without like a surgery or something. But I mean, again, like
But you've seen those moments where if you have a weak eye or visual, like the vision's not strong in it, that they put a patch over your strong eye so that you can actually build it up. So maybe, I mean, there's a little truth to that, I suppose.
I just thought that meant you were a pirate, but it's actually correcting lazy eyes, I see.
All right. You know, it just helps you get that booty.
Nicely done. Hats off to you, sir. Well done.
One joke of the night. Nailed it.
If you'd have just not laughed and like transitioned to the outro, that would have been perfect.
That would have been perfect, yep.
Editing magic. Now.
Yep.
It's hilarious.
I'm just going to put like a 30-second pause in there. And then, you just start the outro.
Insert cricket chirping.
Booty. Yeah. It's awful.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got.
Should I take us out? All right. We would love to read your comments, questions, concerns. You can send us an email at weekendrentalpodcast@gmail.com. Why not send us some pictures as well? Right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Send us some pictures. You can follow us on Twitter. We got a lot of stuff going on over there, as well as YouTube. And of course, you can go to weekendpodcast.com for all things weekend rental. As always, be kind. Rewind. Peaches.
Millions of peaches.
Peaches for free.
Millions of peaches. Peaches for me.
Peaches for me?
No, they're Mr. Chin's.
Booty.